Fairfield, Iowa is, I think, very blessed in that it has a lot of land set aside as a preserve and for recreation that towns of a similar size in Iowa generally don't seem to have. And so we have around our town the Loop Trail. We have now most recently the Naughty Land Prairie Preserve. We have some remnant prairie. We have a number of ponds in and between all those areas. And we also have Hickory Hills. We have the Neff Wetlands, the Cedar Ridge, or rather Cedar Creek Wetlands, and Jefferson County Park. So there's quite a lot to work with in terms of people having the opportunity to get out in nature, and when I say nature, I mean more of a wilderness type of experience as opposed to cornfields and soybeans, which is most of Iowa. So that's a very fortunate thing. On the other hand, it became apparent early on that these areas need our help a bit. And the reason for that is because, to give you a very concrete example, you can usually look to the bird species in the area to give you literally the sort of the canary in the coal mine monitor as to how the environment is doing. And this year, unfortunately, we have no bluebirds. They have disappeared just this past winter. Most likely that was because of the polar vortex that occurred back in March, and it was very cold even further south all the way to Texas. And so the bluebirds did not survive. We hope to see them back in a few more years, but so far that shows that the environment needs our help. In addition, for some time now, we haven't seen scarlet tanagers very often, nor are there wood thrush anymore, and a number of other species of birds that are primarily insect feeders. And that shows that they're not finding the insects that once were plentiful in our area. And the reason for that is because, largely because we now have a lot of area that previously was forest that has now been converted to farmland. But in addition to that, we now have had, particularly in the last 30 years or so, a lot of invasive species from Asia that has encroached into our woodlands, and these are not species that our native insects can feed on. And so with the decrease in species of insects, that means the decrease in species of birds. So our approach to restoration of our wild lands in our immediate facility is twofold. First of all is eradicating, or at least, eradicating I think is too strong of a word. Perhaps it would be better say to at least preserve our wildlands as best we can by removal of the invasive species as best we can. We're not going to be able to eradicate them, nor is that necessarily a goal. But just to keep them from encroaching to the point that at least 70% of the vegetation around us is native in those areas of wild lands would be good enough to reestablish a lot of the bird species that we now see missing. So that is the first part of what we're doing. And then the second part, of course, is then planting the native species, more of the native species, to replace and check the invasive species so that they don't grow back as easily. We have, I think, been moderately successful, particularly in most recently in the Naughty Lands, being able to get that established. This was previously a cropland that was turned into a prairie once again, and we've seeded in the native grasses and the native forbs, and that has been I think within 3 years has come back remarkably well. We've also have been working to keep the invasives out of the remnant prairies we have near and around Waterworks Park, and that's been also highly successful, although we have to be ever vigilant because that stuff there's a reason they call it invasive. It really is. So it takes a team of people to go out there and see and cut back as needed. And then most recently, we've been working on Lamson Woods. And Lamson Woods has been absent of any management plan in the last, 25 years or so. And so the state board, the State Preserve Board, with the Department of Forestry in Iowa, asked us to put together a management plan for Lamson Woods, which we have done now, and it has been approved by the city and also by the State Preserve Board. And we will be beginning to be going ahead on that this winter. So we look forward very much to having that forest restored, because having gone through there recently, I can say that a lot of the woodlands there is in decline. There's no longer regeneration of the oak forest that once was thriving there, mainly because oaks are sunbathers and they need to have plenty of sunlight for those new saplings to come back up. And the forest has grown so thick with elms and hackberries and Ohio buckeye and several other species that there's no longer enough light for the oaks to return. So that will need to be thinned out a little bit and then replanted with some more oaks, and all should be well. So this gives you an idea of some of the work that we're doing, and it will be continuing work. We're working also with Jefferson County Conservation and with the Naughty Lands Committee, and with volunteers that we are interested in our organization as well to accomplish all this. Fairfield has been very blessed by having so many places of wild lands in the community, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Naughty Land Committee and Ron Blair has been essential to getting the loop trail established and to the Naughty Lands themselves. And so I just wanted to give a little shout out to that group and thank them for all their help with that, and that we look forward in Sierra Club with working with you further in the future.